Richard Gage, AIA, is a San Francisco Bay Area architect of 28 years, a member of the American Institute of Architects, and the founder and CEO of Architects and Engineers for 911Truth, a nonprofit 501c3 educational charity. Since its launch in 2006, nearly 2,800 architects and engineers have signed the AE911Truth petition calling for a new, independent investigation into the September 11, 2001 destruction of the World Trade Center buildings 1, 2, and 7. In these last 10 years, Mr. Gage has delivered his presentation, 9/11 Blueprint for Truth, more than 500 times in 37 countries and 110 American cities, to audiences ranging from 30 to 3,000, and appeared in more than 550 radio and television spots. It's a great honor to be here with you all today to welcome Richard Gage to Watertown once again.
Hi, everybody. I have been asked to give you a sense of where we've come from, where we are, where we're going, and for those of you who may be unfamiliar with some of the evidence that we've been talking about for 10 years now, what it is. And I have just a few minutes to do that. So that's a chunk. When I heard on the radio David Ray Griffin being interviewed by Bonnie Faulkner in Berkeley in May of 2006, I was literally stopped in my tracks. I had to pull my car over because I knew that either I was listening to somebody who was an absolute lunatic, or everything I thought I knew about not just 9/11, but the media, the government, wasn't correct. And my world, I could just feel it beginning to shake from deep beneath me, and then begin to turn like this. And I didn't have a ground of being. I sensed that trembling, actually. And how many of you know what I'm talking about from your own personal experience? And for those of you who don't, I will introduce you to the evidence that I was hearing from Dr. Griffin. Well, first of all, I'm an architect. I had been for 23 years at the time. I should have known that there was a 47-story skyscraper that for the first time in history collapsed at freefall symmetrically in 7 seconds due to fire. Fire's never brought down a skyscraper, ever. I'm going, no, I would have heard about this. You know, I would have heard about it. But he was speaking that night or the next night in Oakland at the Grand Lake Theater. And I went there and I was, because I had heard maybe an hour of this interview with all this evidence that I'm going to highlight for you in a minute. And there were 600 people in that auditorium. It was full. I couldn't get in. I couldn't get in. I got a couple of DVDs. I talked to some of these people. I asked them, the ones behind the table, is this real? Because, you know, I was a flag-waving Republican. I was all excited when Colin Powell was giving his indisputable case for weapons of mass destruction at the United Nations. And I wanted to go get those bastards who did this to us. So I didn't have the frame of reference that some of you had 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, who knew that the day JFK was taken out, that this was obviously an inside operation. I didn't know about 9/11. I hadn't heard squat about any question about the official story for 4 years afterward. How many of you knew on day one that there's something really smelly about 9/11? And there was no question as I began to patch my reality back together and the patches fell off and something new emerged, that there was no choice for me to do anything else but to follow in the footsteps of the scholars for 9/11 Truth, the lawyers for 9/11 Truth, the other groups, pilots for 9/11 Truth, who had already formed, who had petitions. Where the hell were the architects and engineers? How many of you were wondering that for the first 4 years? We came late. And I'll be darned if I'm the one who had to do it because no one else was doing it. I was just an average architect. I didn't do high-rises. I didn't make a lot of money. I lived in a condo. I had a job. But there wasn't anything else that could be done except for me to scab together a PowerPoint from Stephen Jones and to scab together a website that I borrowed from scholars for 9/11 Truth. I should have archived it. It's the worst website you've ever seen. And say, hey, look, here's Architects for 9/11 Truth. There's one of us. April of 2006, that happened. And then I finally got this PowerPoint together where because I worked with 15 other architects. They thought I was nuts, absolutely nuts. So, most of them. Some of them already knew, 2 of them. And I bought them pizza, and I made them watch this thing. And every one of them agreed with me after that presentation that, Jesus, you're right. These are controlled demolitions. What do we do now? We'll sign this petition, and there'll be more of us. So there was 15. And it just grew organically as I gave my first public presentation at Sonoma State University. My knees were doing this. I was scared, you know what. And I had to give this presentation to a packed room promoted by Project Censored. Well, today we have almost 2,800 architects and engineers. We've been to 8 national AIA conferences. We have been to many, many state conferences of the American Institute of Architects. We have 175 co-sponsors, AIA members, sponsoring a resolution that we're taking to the National Convention for the 3rd year in a row. The first year we got 4% of the 80,000 architects that are represented by 400 managing and top architects in the country at the annual business meeting. 4% voted in favor. We go, wow, well, this is a start because you need 50% to win the vote. Well, the next year we got 12%, which was pretty cool. I mean, we only have a few minutes to make our case in front of these 400 representing architects. And of course, the board spoke up and said, we looked at this. Diesel fuel fires brought this building down, which is, of course, not even the official story. They're just completely uninformed about the 3rd worst structural failure in modern history. And most of them didn't even know about it. Those who weren't expressing misinformation didn't even know about it. So that's why we have had the booth now for 8 years, educating these architects. Well, this year we're going to go back and we're going to try to raise that percentage to 20 or 30% of the vote. And so we have mailed, or are in the process of mailing now, 25,000 AIA members a mailer that invites them to look at the evidence and to co-sponsor this resolution. We're pretty excited about that. We're even more excited about the AIA's acceptance of our course, 9/11 An Architect's Guide. We submitted, it took us months of a lot of hard work, and it's now on our website. You can look at and take the course. Everybody can take the course. AIA members and architects can get credits for it because it's an AIA CES approved course. They have to have 18 credits every year to stay in the AIA. And now we're on their catalog. You can learn about Building 7, the Twin Towers explosive evidence, the Twin Towers extreme heat. You can watch experts speak out and get a course, a credit, which is incredible. You can read Beyond Misinformation and get 2 credits because it's 50 pages of reading, 2 hours. And you can watch 9/11 Blueprint for Truth, our first DVD, and get credits. It's all pretty exciting. So our hope is that, what's the word? I was going to say infiltrate, but I am an AIA member, so
Critical mass?
Critical mass. Wow, I like the sound of that. Our foot's in the door. Let me put it that way, and we hope to kick that door open with the evidence for World Trade Center 7, a 47-story skyscraper that on the afternoon of 9/11 drops like a rock. Wasn't hit by an airplane. And here it is, 350, 400 feet away from the North Tower, surviving the collapse of the Twin Towers. So what we do in our course is we compare the features of controlled demolition, typical controlled demolition, to the features of this building. And we say, is there any? Well, is there a sudden onset of destruction?
What you're seeing are high shots. Now, here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse itself. Now we go to videotape the collapse of this building.
It's amazing.
Amazing, incredible, pick your word. For the 3rd time today, it's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before, when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down.
How many of you are relatively unfamiliar with this 3rd tower today? Anybody? Okay, so it's always nice to come back to Boston where everybody... Was there one, Wayne? Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Thanks. Are you an architect by any chance? Normal guy? You're a normal guy? Like me? So is there a straight down symmetrical collapse into its footprint? Let's look from West Street. Pretty straight down, pretty symmetrical. In fact, we call out to the architects that the penthouse, the main penthouse and screen wall, drop a half a second prior to the overall building, indicating complete core column damage simultaneously, all 24 columns, which completely pulls the rug out from the NIST theory that says this collapse started from one end of the building inside the shell and then worked its way across. That can't have happened. And even if that did happen, you'd see massive deformation of the exterior perimeter structural steel system, the breaking up of granite panels and windows across the building. This doesn't happen. And we say, well, let's just put them side by side. Building 7 on the left, controlled demolitions on the right. Let's keep the lights off for the duration. Is there any similarity? Is there enough similarity to warrant an investigation into the possible use of explosives? Yeah, especially since it looks exactly like a controlled demolition, especially since fire, the official cause of this building's collapse, has never brought down a skyscraper, ever. And yet NIST focuses exclusively on the hypothesis of controlled demolition. Ignoring, the hypothesis of fires, ignoring the fact that the fires never brought down a skyscraper and that these small, few, and scattered fires are the largest fires that we have evidence of in the building that bring it down, apparently, into its own footprint by the evidence. How does that happen? Well, you have to remove all the core columns a half a second prior, as we saw, because the penthouse comes down, and followed by the perimeter columns. Does fire have that precision, being an organic process, moving through the building every 20 minutes or so, burning up the fuel in that area, looking for fresh new fuel sources moving on. So when buildings come down due to fires, they come down asymmetrically in stages, not straight down through the path of greatest resistance at near freefall acceleration, as we see in the videos and is documented by physicists, gaining downward momentum with every second. It's as if 8 stories were removed from this building because it falls for a third of its fall of 7 seconds. A third of that is in free fall, as fast as a bowling ball falling off the side of the building. Are there witnesses? Plenty of sounds of explosions. Like this one, Kevin McPadden, former Air Force medic.
And then it was like another 2-3 seconds, you heard explosions. Like, boom! And it's like a distinct sound. It's not like when in compression, like boom, 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 like floors that were dropping and collapsing. This was a boom, and like you felt a rumble in the ground, like almost like you wanted to grab onto something. That, to me, I knew that was an explosion.
Do we have enormous pyroclastic-like clouds, which would be indicative of what? Massive heat source causing the rapidly expanding cauliflower-shaped plumes racing away in every direction from World Trade Center Building 7. Much more heat than the few small scattered fires in that building, creating this rapidly expanding clouds. Fire doesn't create any of these features, we believe, let alone all of them. Fires, if they were going to bring down any of the World Trade Center buildings, might have brought down World Trade Center 5, fully engulfed in flames. Did it come down? No. Fires never brought down a mid-rise or high-rise office space. We have severe problems that we tell the architects with the preservation of evidence, a cardinal rule in any crime scene. But what we have is the illegal destruction of evidence in a crime scene at 400 truckloads a day beginning just 2 weeks after 9/11. Sent to China for recycling before forensic investigators could get their eyes on it. When we turn our attention to the Twin Towers, we have an even greater set of problems that we present to the architects in our course number 2 and 3. Is there a sudden onset of destruction? Are there witnesses that hear sounds of explosions? Do they see flashes of light? There are hundreds and hundreds of them. Oral recordings from Thomas von Essen picked up 118. Now 156 is documented very carefully by Dr. Graham McQueen. And what are they experiencing? They're experiencing explosions at the onset of the destruction. In this case, the North Tower on the right, slowing it down to half speed, a known controlled demolition. On the left, is there any similarity? In the first 4 seconds, it looks exactly like a controlled demolition with the sudden onset, a near symmetrical collapse. Very similar to Building 7 in the first 4 seconds. In the South Tower, also the same. Is there enough similarity to warrant an investigation into the possible use of explosives? This is what we ask the architects. Is there a pile driver driving down the rest of the building, which is the official story that came out 2 days after 9/11 in a detailed set of calculations that not even structural engineers can understand, from Chicago Northwestern University. Thank you, Wayne Costa, for this great graphic that I stole. Awesome graphic. Where is the pile driver? There's no video or photo that shows it. In fact, it looks more like a volcanic eruption, like the Tongan Sea on the right, with outward arching streamers, laterally freely flying structural steel sections, followed by trails of thick white smoke. The North Tower begins to tip over. Well, it's 22 degrees. So we have asymmetrical damage from the fires, asymmetrical damage from the planes, asymmetrical damage from this section that's falling off the building, and yet from below, complete symmetrical damage, destruction, all the way down the face of the building, like the firefighters described, all around like a belt, all these explosions, synchronistically timed, they go on. And you can see this detailed evidence, of course, in our DVDs, which we have for you in the back. Are we looking at a collapse or a series of, in this case, hundreds of explosions traveling rapidly down systematically the corner of this building? What are we looking at as architects? Why did the buildings that we designed here shatter completely from top to bottom? As the National Fire Protection Association guide tells us, look for the shattering or the high-order damage that's caused by explosions, the laterally distributed structural steel elements. It's a pancaking collapse. It doesn't come down only, which gravity does. It goes out, in this case, 12 to 1,400 feet, well beyond the boundary of ground zero. Compare the nice, neat pile of Building 7, a classic implosion, versus the very destructive, explosive event known as the Twin Towers, with isolated ejections called squibs in the controlled demolition industry, pulverized building materials, 20, 40, even 60 stories down below the so-called collapsing event. How fast is the building coming down? Let's count. 4, 5 seconds, 7, 8, 10. In about a dozen, maybe 15 seconds, it is completely destroyed from top to bottom, almost as fast as a bowling ball falling off the side of the building, crushing what? 90% air is what we're told by debunkers. That's how it comes down so fast. Ignoring completely the massive exoskeleton, more steel than glass in this facade, and the 47 massive core columns inside, as if they're not even there. What happened to them? They are completely dismembered. One beam from a column and laterally broken up, distributed well outside the perimeter of the structure, broken up into original column lengths. Do we have lateral ejection? Well, look at the time-lapse photography here with laterally, freely flying structural steel sections, back 2, 3, forward 2, 3. What angle is that? That's about 45 degrees. How does gravity work? Down. What's going on here? Out. What's sending these 4-ton structural steel sections out, landing up to 600 feet in every direction? Where are the floors? 110 of them in each of these buildings. Are they stacked up like a pancaking collapse, which we would expect and see in Mexico on the right, but on the left, a 2-story pile of core columns, perimeter columns, etc. No stack of pancakes. Very little concrete. Where's the concrete? It's been pulverized to a fine powder, 100 microns, in all of this dust landing from river to river, with evidence of extremely hot temperatures, up to 2,800 degrees, the melting point of steel. But fires can't get this hot. How do we get red hot steel? Got it, Rich, thanks. Pulled from deep within the pile. What do the first responders say? Saw pools of literally molten steel dripping from the molten steel, pouring molten metal out of the side of the towers minutes before the South Towers collapse.
You'd get down below and you'd see molten steel running down the channel rails. Like you're in a foundry. Like lava.
We asked the architects. We had a dozen architects out of 50 who were present yesterday at noon in the Boston Society of Architects space. We were invited to speak. We say, well, where does the molten metal come from? Why is there evidence of molten steel? Why does FEMA spend so much time and energy on metallurgical analysis documenting steel that's turned into Swiss cheese, intergranular melting, concrete that's melted, flowing like lava around this gun? That's 33,000 degrees minimum. Surface temperatures, 1,340 degrees, 1,160 degrees, 1,370 degrees around these 3 piles. Where does this heat come from? What was found in the World Trade Center dust? Why are there iron microspheres, the diameter of a human hair, made of elemental iron, not steel, but elemental iron? Why is 6% of all these dust samples, on average, composed of these unexplained molten iron spheres? As you see here, thermite, when it's set off, creates these spheres. Is that explainable by what else is found in the dust by a international team of scientists led by Niels Harrit in Copenhagen? Nanothermite, with extremely sophisticated small red-gray chips composed of iron oxide aluminum powder, the diameter 1,000 times smaller than a human hair, which is an energetic material by its nature, which produces spheres when it's heated, the same spheres found by officials in the World Trade Center dust. As if we didn't know where those spheres came from, they're found attached to partially ignited red-gray chips, all of which is called superthermite, a very sophisticated form made not in a cave in Afghanistan, but in the most sophisticated advanced defense contracting laboratories, documented in a 24-page paper, the Bentham Open Chemical Physics Journal. Do we have enough evidence here to warrant a new investigation? That's what we asked them. And we asked them to ponder the disturbing truth about 9/11. And we don't go into details or speculation about what this evidence means in these venues. But we do encourage them to do further research, as you can as well. And we have these types of promotional materials available for you. We ask everybody today to sign our petition online at AE911Truth. Support us financially so we can continue our valuable work. Follow your conscience and act. Thank you very much for understanding what we do out there with these architects.